everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the books I read between September 7th and September 13th. First up, I'm going to group these two together as they're part of the same series, and that is the Neverwar, which I gave 4.5 stars, and the Reality Bug, which I gave 3.5 stars, both by DJ McHale. These fulfilled the prompt of read 2 books in the same series for series September. So these are the 3rd and 4th books in the Pendragon series. In this series, we're following Bobby Pendragon, who in the first book is asked for help by his Uncle Press. He easily agrees, having no idea that the place where Uncle Press needs help is actually another world. This leads Bobby to having adventures in different lands, all while battling the evil Saint Dane, who wants to destroy all of these worlds, including Bobby's own. So these were both rereads for me, and as you can tell by my ratings, I definitely enjoyed the Neverwar more than I enjoyed the Reality Bug, and that was the same upon my first read as well. The Neverwar is actually one of my favorite books in this series. I really like the world that they're in and the characters that Bobby gets to interact with and meets in this story, whereas the world and characters that Bobby gets to meet and interact with in the Reality Bug were probably some of my least favorite. I can say that I thought something that happened in book 4 didn't actually happen. I was misremembering it. So it was really good that I had gone back and reread this series, because if I had tried to pick up wherever I left off, I would have misremembered this detail, and it was kind of an important detail to forget. I am really enjoying my reread and am looking forward to picking up book 5. Next up, I read Too Bright to See by Kyle Luckoff, and I gave this book 4 stars. In this book, we're following Bug, and after the death of Bug's uncle, Bug is struggling to deal with it. It is also the summer before middle grade, and while Bug's friend Moira is getting into makeup and finding the perfect clothes to wear, that doesn't appeal to Bug at all. While all this is going on, there's also a ghost haunting Bug's house, and Bug has to try to figure out what the ghost is doing there and what it wants. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought Kyle Luckoff did a really good job of weaving in Bug's struggle with the death of her much beloved uncle, while also showcasing the changes that happen as a child enters middle grade territory, and the idea that Bug's house is haunted and there is a ghost that is trying to tell Bug something. I thought it was really well done how he wove those 3 threads together and created a cohesive story from it. I also thought that having the ghost aspect added a bit of spooky to this contemporary story. I really thought it was just an interesting way to tell Bug dealing with grief and dealing with change and growing up, and using a ghost story to kind of help both of those points along. And if this at all sounds interesting, I highly recommend you check it out. Next up, I read Through the Untamed Sky by Jennifer Lynn Alvarez, and I gave this 4.5 stars. This book covered the prompt red cover for Phase 10 Chooses My TBR, and second book in a series for series September. This book has 2 points of view. One is Rocky, who is working as a stable groom for the Sandwen army. He takes care of the Pegasi for the riders of the Sandwen army. The Pegasi and the riders protect the Sandwen clan from the dangers that lurk in the forest. Our other point of view is Echo Frost, who is a wild Pegasi whose herd is looking for a safe place to live. They have ended up in Rocky's land, and when they encounter Rocky's people, they want to capture her and her herd because they had no idea that wild Pegasi still existed and would like to add some more Pegasi to their army. Echo Frost and her herd weren't expecting to have to deal with this kind of enemy, while Rocky isn't sure capturing them is the right idea. And we kind of go along from there and see what happens with Rocky and his people and what happens with Echo Frost and her herd. This is the continuation of that journey, and I absolutely adored it. I love Echo Frost and Rocky and getting to see how their story progressed in this second book. It's really hard to talk about this without giving away major plot points for the first one, because this literally picks up where the first one left off. I enjoy getting to see the differences between the wild Pegasi and the tamed Pegasi that Rocky works with. It is very, very interesting to see the massive differences, even though they're the same creature, and wondering how the Pegasi that Rocky's people have tamed evolved from the kind of wild herd that Echo Frost is a part of, because one would assume that at one point they were wild Pegasi long before they got tamed. I am really enjoying this story, and I cannot wait to see how this trilogy wraps up. Next up, I read Seven Black Diamonds by Melissa Marr, and I gave this 2.5 stars. This book fulfills the prompt, read a book that has Fae or Elven characters for the Magical Readathon. This book follows several characters, one of whom is Lily, who is part Fae. Her dad is a crime boss, and she is used to keeping secrets besides being part Fae. Her dad has always been really protective of her. And despite that, this year he ends up sending her to a prestigious school where she ends up meeting the Black Diamonds. They are the other POVs of this book. And they are a sleeper cell of part Fae sent there by the Queen of Blood and Rage, who hates the humans as she blames them for the death of her daughter and has vowed revenge. The Black Diamonds are supposed to destroy the human world from within. What Lily doesn't know is that she is marked to join them. So I've changed my reading on this book several times, mainly because after I read it, I sat with it for a while, and the longer I was away from it, the less I remembered or cared. I am finding that I am far less into YA fantasy because I feel like I see similar tropes played out over and over and over again. These characters just didn't click for me, and I wasn't super invested in the story. I believe this is a duology, though don't hold me to that, and I could see myself maybe reading the second book on audiobook if I ever needed a book for a prompt with like fake characters again, but otherwise I can't see myself reading the sequel, as this was only okay for me. And like I said, the longer I've been away from this, the less I remember about what happened, and that is usually a sign that a book didn't click with me and that I didn't care about the characters because I'm not retaining what the story was about. So I likely won't read the sequel to this, but you never know. And lastly, I read The Screaming Staircase by Jonathan Stroud, and I gave this book 4.25 stars. This is the middle grade monthly pick for September. It fulfills the prompt, new to me author, for the Fall Into Reading Challenge, and it fulfills the prompt, start a series for series September. So in this book, we're following Lucy, who works at Lockwood & Co., an agency tasked with dealing with all matters of ghost, haunts, spirits, and specters. Only the young have the ability to deal with these creatures, and Lockwood & Co. is just 3 people, Lucy, Lockwood, and George, none of whom are adults. When one of their cases has a disastrous ending, things get rough for them as there was no adult supervision. This leads Lockwood & Co. to taking on a dangerous case that may be more than they can handle. So this book was the perfect amount of spooky for me. I really love the atmosphere and how they displayed the ghosts and haunts and specters and stuff, and how only the young have the minds that can handle dealing with these creatures. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily have an adult around, especially if that adult did your job when they were younger, so they have experience in the field. But like I said, Lockwood & Co. is just 3 people and none of them are adults. So when this case they're working on goes completely sideways, it leaves them in a lot of hot water, which leaves them with absolutely no recourse but to take this dangerous case that probably most others wouldn't touch. I really love getting to see how Lucy ended up in Lockwood & Co. and the differences in her relationship with Lockwood and George, because Lockwood and George are very, very different people, and it is interesting to see how their relationship developed from that very first meeting to where they are now. I thought this book had such a great spooky atmosphere, and this is definitely the right time to read this book if you like to read spooky reads in the fall time. I definitely will be continuing on with the series because I want to see what kind of cases Lockwood & Co. take on next, and I'm really excited to have a new spooky series to check out. So these are some of the books I've read recently. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them in the comment section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a diamond emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!